What's going on, everybody? This is your internet wrestling champion here, back again for another review, and this time we're going to talk about the April 14th, 2025 episode of Monday Night Raw. Let's get into it. All right, so opening up the show last night was Gunter, who was supposed to have a one-on-one interview with Michael Cole in the middle of the ring, but instead he storms his way down into the entrance through the ramp into the ring. And I guess it was on, like, he called an audible and just did it on the call because Michael Cole didn't seem prepared at all. Like, he knew that it was going to happen in the middle of the ring. So he was like, I guess it's happening right now. And he just walks in. And from the bat, he doesn't really get to ask him anything. He barely got through the first question. He brings up how Gunter looked frustrated last week, and it seems that he might have lost control of the situation. And he asks Gunter straight up, "Are you frustrated?" And Gunter kind of cuts him off, and he's like, "You know what? Screw your question." And he goes on a tirade. He just loses it. He crashes out. He crashes out within the first 30 seconds of the segment, which I think might have been record setting. But yeah, he continues to just berate Jey Uso. He says, "Screw Jey Uso, screw everything Jey Uso stands for, screw everybody who stands with Jey Uso." I'll be honest, I don't know what Jey Uso did to make Gunter this mad, because last I recall, it was Gunter who had Jay's twin brother in a bloody pulp 2 weeks ago. But it's Gunter who's more angry than Jay is. I guess that's the point. But I just don't feel like they've done a good job in explaining Gunter's motivation and reasoning, because he doesn't seem justified for why he's attacking Jey Uso the way he is. He's never been this bloodthirsty before, not even against Sami Zayn when he was defending his IC championship. I've yet to have a satisfactory reason as to why we're seeing this side of him now. It just doesn't seem right. Something seems forced about it, but I don't know. I'm a little concerned. I'm not concerned for the match. I'm concerned for the fallout and the aftermath afterwards, Because the way I see it, if Jay loses, that's an L, because that entire character arc and half a year's worth of build just went down the drain. And maybe they're going to use that to lead into a heel Jey Uso run. I don't know. But if Gunter loses on the flip side, now it's just what happened. He was on the run of his, well, I mean, on paper, the run of his life. He had beaten everybody that had come in his way. He'd already beaten this guy 3 times before. Why did he take it this far just to lose and crash out for no reason when he had the upper hand? That is gonna, I think, bite him in the ass later down the road if they don't play their cards right. And I'm a little iffy about it. I'm not saying I'm not excited for the match, because I do think it's always entertaining to see those two. But I'm concerned and on the back foot when it comes to what's gonna happen coming out of WrestleMania 41. Next up, we had Liv Morgan versus Bayley, which was a fairly competitive match before everything dissolves into a brawl. It was mainly just fluff to fill up the time slot, I think, because nothing really happens. Towards the end, however, Lyra does help Bayley pick up the win by distracting Liv Morgan, allowing Bayley to hit her with, as Simon Miller calls it, the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, the surprise to win roll up. And she gets the 1, 2, 3. And I gotta be honest with you, I really don't know what's going on with the women's tag team division. It just seems like they needed this in order to fill one of the time slots at WrestleMania, one of the matches in the card. And they just threw together a bunch of teams. They literally threw together a bunch of teams, Bayley and Lyra Valkyria being one of it, right? Because they weren't a team up until the announcement of this tournament. They literally announced the team at the same time as the tournament. And I guess, like, I'm assuming that's part of the storyline, but it really makes me wonder, well, what was the point of introducing the Intercontinental Championship if you're just going to use the inaugural champion in order to further the development of the tag team division? It just doesn't seem intuitive. It seems counterproductive. It just validates my suspicions that they might have just introduced these mid-card titles to fluff up the division and bolster their merchandise sales. But yeah, we had Bayley defeating Liv Morgan with a surprise to win roll up at the penultimate Raw before WrestleMania. And Again, I just don't know what's going on. I guess there isn't going to be a singles match for the IC championship at Mania this year. I guess I don't know. I don't know what's going on. As you can tell, I don't have any words to describe how confusing the IC championship and its implementation is to me. But I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see. We're gonna have to see if maybe they lose their opportunity for the tag titles at Mania. Maybe this is an opportunity for either Bailey to go heel or maybe Lyra Valkyria. I really feel like this might be a chance for Lyra to turn heel and start adding some sauce to her character because right now she's a bland character. She's a bland baby face with a bland title run who hasn't even made it onto the WrestleMania card as a singles champion, you know? And I don't mean to sound like a dick talking about her like that, but it's the truth. And I think she deserves a lot more. I think she can earn a lot better. I don't know what's going on with her, and it's a little disappointing. But I'm hopeful still that they're gonna use this as a way to turn her heel on the grandest stage of them all, and it's really gonna add some flair to her character. Next up was Julius Creed versus Rey Mysterio. Rey taking on a monstrous Julius Creed 1 week ahead of his fight with the greatest luchador of all time, El Grande Americano. This was a fairly competitive match, and I was actually pretty entertained throughout the entire match. It went on for like 7 to 10 minutes, maybe a little longer. Rey Mysterio got caught in midair by Julius several times and slammed onto the mat when he would try to go for a crossbody attempt. And I think they did a really good job in making Julius look powerful because too many times outside of the ring, he's too wacky as a personality for anyone to really take him seriously. And I think that's kind of hurt him in the long run as of late because you don't really associate his name with crazy feats of strength because he would get bodied whenever he's in the ring besides a 1-2 decent displays of strength. But this time, he really was manhandling Rey for most of the match in terms of any physical exchange. It wouldn't be a Monday Night Raw if we didn't have yet another bit of chicanery in the middle of a match. And in the middle of the match, you would have an interference by El Grande Americano himself, the greatest luchador of all time. And we have the Battle of the Goats for a brief moment when Rey tries to rip off El Grande's mask. Rey really just blaspheming all over the place right now, you know, trying to rip off a fellow luchador's mask. I don't know, man. Maybe Dom was right. Thankfully, though, the integrity of the luchador art was preserved, and El Grande managed to slip away from Rey just in time before he got the mask off him. However, Julius was not as fortunate because Rey did manage to pick up the win with a 619 and off the top rope. But after the match, El Grande comes in and attacks Rey and hits him with the loaded mask headbutt, as I think Michael Cole put it. And he goes on and says, "Gracias" to everybody. Obviously not Chad Gable. This sets up our match between Rey Mysterio and El Grande Americano for WrestleMania 41 to decide who the greatest luchador of all time really is. Listen, as hyped as I am for this match, I really don't like the fact that Chad Gable is missing out yet another WrestleMania slot. This is the second WrestleMania in a row that Chad does not present in, and I think that's absolutely ridiculous. I'm all for Rey Mysterio, but I think I've seen maybe 10 to 15 WrestleManias with the guy in it. Why couldn't we have given this match to Chad Gable? And I think that would have been a fine way to close out his character arc as of late, right? He is having trouble with luchadors, and what better way to finally close that off than to beat arguably the greatest luchador of all time coming out of the Gulf of America, El Grande Americano. You know, it would have been amazing, and I think it would have been a beautiful storyline for him to finally have his WrestleMania moment with. And for some reason, they gave it to Rey Mysterio. I don't know. I think Dom might have been right about this guy. Next up, we have Karrion Kross versus AJ Styles. Karrion just being nefarious and dastardly as ever as of late, just whispering into various people's ears like Sami Zayn, Xavier Woods, and now AJ Styles. And I gotta tell you, I really like what they're doing with Karrion right now, because it really feels like they're starting to add some development and depth and layers to this guy and preparing him for the post-WrestleMania 41 season. I really think moving forward after WrestleMania, they're really planning on doing something with this guy. Maybe in the main event scene. If not that, maybe make him win a Money in the Bank. I'd love to see that. But yeah, I think he's someone to watch out for. So Karrion dominates the majority of the match until he seemingly twists his ankle. And I think he did this to lure AJ in to show him the folly of compassion. Because out of concern, AJ comes to check up on Karrion and is met with a blow to the face. And Karrion punches him in the face, pissing off AJ and ensuing a flurry of offense from AJ, finishing Karrion off with a phenomenal forearm and picking up the 1-2-3 for the win. After the match, Logan Paul comes out and does his usual shtick. He's annoying, he trash talks Sacramento, and this time plays some hype package, just, glazing himself. It wasn't much of anything, the usual fluff. And AJ responds with, "That was a cute video, smartass, but why don't you come into this ring and fight me like a man and we bring WrestleMania early for Sacramento?" And in typical fashion, Paul wasn't really having it until after Karrion had gotten involved and distracted AJ Styles, providing Paul with the opening to come in and capitalize. So he hits AJ Styles with the knockout blow, and then he takes AJ Styles. I'm guessing this is the first time we've really seen it. I don't recall ever having seen this before, but he hits him with what is now his new finisher, the pulverizer. And he kind of gets him into this reverse suplex type of thing. And I'm not gonna lie, it looks like it can put somebody away, especially because of how corny the name is. I would give it extra points given who Paul is. It's an annoying ass dude who backs up the talk. So I think it's fitting. It's a devastating move with a cheesy ass name. Now, the second to last segment of the show was Jey Uso cutting his last promo before WrestleMania 41. So he comes out to his music, but like last week, he doesn't do his usual shtick. There's no gimmicks for the first portion of the program. No dancing, no colorful gear, no smiling. He comes out clad in all black. And you would think this dude is all business, and that's what they're trying to convey. But again, I gotta be honest, there's just not much more to add to the story. He doesn't really say much that furthers the narrative. It seems like he just made an appearance for appearance's sake, because he calls out Gunter for being angry, and then he says, "I think you're afraid of me." And he calls Gunter out for being afraid of him. And he tells Gunter, "Yo, I'm gonna beat your ass at WrestleMania. I'm gonna get you, and I'm gonna do it for the World Heavyweight Championship. Play my music one time for the one time," and he does one single solitary yeet for the fans and makes his way out. So not a lot of substance from either Jay or Gunter in last night's episode, but I think they did their job. They did a decent job in conveying the frustration oozing out of Gunter and the calmness that's coming from Jay. So that is your final segment between these two before WrestleMania 41. I'm excited to see how they're going to make this pay off, how they're going to make the build come full circle, but that's it until Saturday night. Now, to close off the penultimate episode of Raw before WrestleMania, we have Roman Reigns arriving just in time for the main event. And here we have a funny segment where all throughout the night, we've been cutting away to Paul Heyman, seeing him wait for Roman Reigns to arrive. And here, CM Punk, of all people, pull up right beside Paul Heyman, arm over his shoulder, and he tells him, "Hey, Paul, don't stress so much. Look into my eyes. What do you see?" And Paul's like, "A cult of personality?" And he's like, "No, you idiot. No, you see a real friend." And he gets close to Paul. He's like, "I'm not going to do you like Roman does. I'm not going to betray you. I'm not going to give you the cold shoulder. I'm not going to treat you like that." And while that's happening, you see Roman Reigns pull up and come out of his car, and he sees these two getting comfortable and chit-chatting. Now, Paul had his back turned because he was distracted by Punk, so he hadn't even realized that Roman had arrived until a few seconds after, or a few minutes after. So he turns around, and he just sees his tribal chief disgusted at the display. And he doesn't even acknowledge Paul. He just walks away, and he storms off for the ring. Now, Paul is left to catch up to him. And he does. And when they get into the ring, he goes to give him the mic like he usually does. But Roman doesn't acknowledge it. He just brushes shoulders with him and walks past him. And he gets the mic from the guy on the side. And basically, he asks him, he's like, "Why did you betray me?" And this week, I can really tell the frustration is starting to creep up on Paul Heyman, because he was like, "I didn't betray you. I owed a favor." and he's really trying to drill it into his head. You normally don't see this type of attitude or even this little bit of, ruffling in his feathers, so to speak. He's usually tries his best to be more composed. If he's not totally calm, he's completely frightened at the presence of Roman. But now you see him being a little more frustrated because he's thinking, yo, I don't even want to be in this position, but I did all this for you. I'm just cashing in a favor. And in response to this, Roman says, I didn't ask for anything. I didn't ask for any help when I was going to war against my family. So why do I have to come out of pocket for your dumbass favor? And before Paul even gets a chance to answer, Seth Rollins interrupts and makes his way to the ring. And he tells Roman, you're finally starting to get it. You're finally starting to understand what I've been trying to tell you. That all I've ever done was the right thing. Everything that I do is for the better of this business. And if I don't do it, nobody will. And he tries to tell Roman, CM Punk is the real problem. It's not Seth Rollins. It's not anything else. It's CM Punk and people like him, people who think they can take their ball and leave and come back when shit's good and mooch and leech off of our success and take food off of our plate. And he continues to say that favors aren't done by chance. They're done by choice, and Paul Heyman made his decision, and now Roman has to make his own. And for what seems like the first time in years, Roman actually understands what Seth is saying, and he tells Paul, Seth is right, you made your choice, and I made mine. And he turns around and socks Seth in the face and takes Seth out. Now, Paul, thinking all is forgiven, thinking he's in the clear, starts acknowledging Roman Reigns and starts saying, yeah, you almost got me, that was good. And he gets shoved in the face by Roman as well, and he's pushed to the ground, which cues Cult of Personality, and in makes CM Punk making a beeline down to the ring. And he makes quick work of Roman Reigns and goes on to check up on his friend Paul. And while he's checking up on Paul, Roman quickly recovers and gets in position in the other side of the ring. And once he gets Punk's attention, it was already too late. He hits him with a spear and lays him out. And as he gets up, in comes Seth Rollins, and Shades of 2014 hits Roman in the back with a steel chair, just like he did 11 years ago, just like he did at the main event of WrestleMania 40. And he lays out Roman Reigns and then hits CM Punk with a curb stomp right after, laying them both out. And he's the only one standing tall at the last episode of Raw before WrestleMania 41. And there you go, closing off the penultimate Raw, arguably the most dangerous version of Seth Rollins, standing tall over both CM Punk and Roman Reigns, his two biggest rivals in the history of his career. Now, I know a lot of people were critical of this build-up for the match going into WrestleMania, but I think they've really done a good job over the last 4 to 5 weeks building up this match. As soon as they had that cage match between Rollins and Seth, as soon as Roman came back, I think they've just gradually elevated the storyline, each week having a new element implemented to further the narrative of this match going into WrestleMania. And as per usual, they add a little bit of poetry in there with that chair shot, not only calling back to the moment they had broken up the Shield, but also it's nice that they did it with CM Punk in the ring, because I'm sure, as everybody knows by now, he's the one who actually birthed the idea of the Shield to begin with. It was his idea. So they now called back to the birth and the death of the Shield, all with one chair strike. And I think that was really nice and a good way to close off the show. So a strong finish to the penultimate episode. Seth Rollins looking strong to close off the episode. I really like that because I feel like he's been getting shafted the last 6 months. But I liked how this ended. And I know a lot of people are predicting that Seth is going to pull off the swerve and win with Paul Heyman joining him. But honestly, I've heard him mention what's best for business a few times in this build. And I really feel like somehow either Roman or Punk are going to win. And Seth, out of frustration, he's going to end up somehow getting involved in Cody's match, helping Cena win the 17th title And I think he's going to join what I've called the Illuminati. I think that's what's going to happen because that just seems to be the most natural way for his character arc. Because look at everything he's sacrificed. He's brought that up so many times, and literally nothing he's fought for has happened. Roman Reigns is back. He's back as the tribal chief, trying to be the main event of WrestleMania again. He's doing, and CM Punk is now in the main event of WrestleMania. Everything that he was fighting to protect has failed if you really look back and review the last year since he dropped the title at WrestleMania 40. So there you have it, guys. That was your review for last night's episode of Monday Night Raw. What are your thoughts about the build and the overall road to WrestleMania 41? What are your predictions for WrestleMania 41? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like what you're seeing from me, feel free to like and subscribe. And until the next time, have a great week.